Disclaimer. This documentary program is created for education information purpose only. The views, comments, statements, opinions carried or expressed as a part of this program are the independent view of the respective participants. CAS does not endorse or support any such views and makes no warranties regards to the accuracy and reliability of the same. This program is not in any manner whatsoever intended to defame, disparage, or bring disrepute to any person, entity, caste, creed, community, race, or religion. Viewers' discretion is advised. The creator affirms that they have made every reasonable effort to limit the material used in this video strictly within the framework of the Copyright Act and the principles of fair use for educational purposes. The information, facts, and visuals presented in this video have been gathered from a variety of sources, including, but not limited to, social media, electronic media, public libraries, the general internet, and artificial intelligence, AI.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. And I don't mind making this speech without a teleprompter, because the teleprompter is not working. I feel very happy to be up here with you nevertheless, and that way you speak more from the heart. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble. Hello, Madam First Lady. Thank you very much for being here. And Madam President, Mr. Secretary General, First Lady of the United States, distinguished delegates, ambassadors, and world leaders. 6 years have passed since I last stood in this grand hall and addressed a world that was prosperous and at peace in my first term. Since that day, the guns of war have shattered the peace I've...
Introducing. Hello friends, this is Professor Murli once again, to dwell on another pressing topic of the decade. India and the United Nations Security Council. Venue was the General Assembly Hall, United Nations. Headquarters place was New York City, United States of America. And date was 23rd to 27th September 2025. And concluded on September 29th, 2025. Yes, I am talking about the UN General Assembly UNJ80 session, known as the General Debate, that was held in September 2025, attended by typically over 150 out of its total member of 193 sovereign states. That is, the heads of states and government to deliver speeches. The theme of the session. The theme for this session was Better Together, 80 Years and More for Peace, Development and Human Rights. It focuses on renewing the global commitment to multilateralism, solidarity, and collective action to address global challenges and advance the Sustainable Development Goals. The UN Charter. Before diving deeper into the UNO and India's stance, it's essential to understand the foundation of the organization. The United Nations Charter, also known as the UN Charter, the Charter, officially entered into force on 24 October 1945, and therefore, officially it is a foundational treaty under international law. But in a way, the UN Charter can be considered the constitution of the UNO. This date is celebrated annually as United Nations Day. This distinction is important because the UN is an organization of sovereign states, not a global sovereign state itself. However, the Charter functions much like a constitution for the global body it created. Why is it? The constitution of UNO, the UN Charter, possesses several key attributes common to national constitutions. Establishes the governing structure. It creates and defines the powers and composition of the 6 principal organs of the UNO, the General Assembly, Security Council, ICJ, etc. Defines purposes and principles. It lays out the fundamental goals of the organization, e.g., maintaining peace, promoting human rights, developing friendly relations, and the principles all members must adhere to, e.g., sovereign equality of states, prohibition of the use of force, supremacy in law, Article 103. The Charter holds a unique position that is superior to all other international treaties. Article 103 states that the obligations under the Charter shall prevail over obligations under any other international agreement. This gives it a constitutional supremacy over all other international law for its members. Difficult to amend. Like most constitutions, the Charter is intentionally difficult to amend, requiring a 2/3 vote in the General Assembly and ratification by 2/3 of the member states, including all 5 permanent members of the Security Council.
Excellency, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At the beginning of this week, we referred to the United Nations as the house of diplomacy and dialogue, standing at a crossroads, a place where we gather to have hard conversations during challenging times. If this high-level week is an indication, this house is fulfilling that purpose. The United Nations is still relevant. Over the past week, we have heard from 189 member states, including 124 heads of state and government.
Legal personality. It is the founding document that grants the UN its legal personality in the international arena, allowing it to act on the world stage. Why it's officially a treaty legally, the UN Charter is classified as a constituent treaty. Creation by agreement. It was adopted and ratified by the signatory governments following the process of a traditional international treaty. Sovereign states. It governs the relations between sovereign states, its members. Unlike a national constitution, it does not derive its authority from a sovereign people of the world creating a world government. Rather, it is a contract between the world's governments. No pervasive law. It does not displace the entire legal system of its member states. It only binds them in certain obligations, primarily concerning peace and security. Structure and content. The Charter is an international treaty and is binding on all UN member states. Its rules supersede obligations under any other treaties. It is divided into 19 chapters and 111 articles. It outlines the rights and obligations of member states and establishes the governing structure of the UN system. In essence, the UN Charter is a foundational treaty that acts as the constitutional framework for the world's largest intergovernmental organization. Friends, I will deal with the UN Charter at length in my subsequent documentary. Now, back onto the rail, let us dwell upon the UNO, for which the UN Charter came into force in 1945, the United Nations with the signing of the UN Charter officially and entering into force on October 24, 1945. The United Nations organization came into force after being ratified by the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, China, France, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States, and a majority of 50 other signatory countries. India was one of the founding members of the United Nations in 1945, joining the UN on October 30, 1945. India's inclusion as a founding member is notable because at the time it was not yet a fully sovereign independent state. It gained independence in August 1947. This status highlights its early and active involvement in the formation of the organization. Composition of the UNO. The United Nations Organization, UNO, is composed of 193 member countries and 2 to 6 principal branches. As established by the UN Charter in 1945, they are 1. The General Assembly. It is composed of all 193 member countries, with each country having 1 vote. It is the main deliberative, policy-making, and representative body. It discusses all matters under the Charter, approves the budget, and appoints the non-permanent members of the Security Council. The Security Council, it is the most powerful body of the UN. It has 15 members, 5 permanent members, P5, China, France, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, and the United States, and 10 non-permanent.
Member States 3. Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC. This body comprises of 54 members elected by the General Assembly for overlapping 3-year terms. It is the central body for coordination, policy review, and dialogue on economic, social, and environmental issues, as well as the implementation of internationally agreed development goals. Secretariat. It consists of the Secretary General and thousands of international UN staff members. This body carries out the diverse day-to-day work of the organization, administers programs and policies, and provides analysis for the other principal organs. The Secretary General is the Chief Administrative Officer of the UN-5. International Court of Justice, ICJ. It consists of 15 judges elected for 9-year terms by the General Assembly and the Security Council. It is the principal judicial organ of the UN. It settles legal disputes between countries and gives advisory opinions to UN organs and specialized agencies. It is the only principal organ not located in New York, with its seat in The Hague, Netherlands, Trusteeship Council. It originally composed of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. Its function was to oversee the administration of trust territories to ensure steps were taken to prepare them for self-government or independence. It suspended operation in 1994 after the last trust territory, Palau, achieved independence. It now only meets as necessary. Primary objective. Article 1. The primary purposes of the UN, as laid out in the Charter, are 1. Maintain international peace and security. To take effective collective measures for the prevention and removal of threats to peace, and to suppress acts of aggression. Develop friendly relations, based on respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples. Achieve international cooperation. In solving economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian problems, and in promoting respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms for all. Be a center for harmonizing, to be a forum for harmonizing the actions of nations in the attainment of these common ends. Key Principles, Article 2. The organization and its members must act in accordance with these principles. Sovereign equality. The organization is based on the principle of the sovereign equality of all its members. Good faith. Members must fulfill in good faith the obligations assumed by them in accordance with the Charter. Peaceful settlement of disputes. Members shall settle their international disputes by peaceful means. Prohibition of force. Members must refrain from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or Member States. 3. Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC. This body comprises of 54 members elected by the General Assembly for overlapping 3-year terms. It is the central body for coordination, policy review, and dialogue on economic, social, and environmental issues, as well as the implementation of internationally agreed development goals. Secretariat. It consists of the Secretary General and thousands of international UN staff members. This body carries out the diverse day-to-day work of the organization, administers programs and policies, and provides analysis for the other principal organs. The Secretary General is the Chief Administrative Officer of the UN 5. International Court of Justice, ICJ. It consists of 15 judges elected for 9-year terms by the General Assembly and the Security Council. It is the principal judicial organ of the UN. It settles legal disputes between countries and gives advisory opinions to UN organs and specialized agencies. It is the only principal organ not located in New York, with its seat in The Hague, Netherlands. Trusteeship Council. It originally composed of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. Its function was to oversee the administration of trust territories, to ensure steps were taken to prepare them for self-government or independence. It suspended operation in 1994 after the last trust territory, Palau, achieved independence. It now only meets as necessary. Primary objective. Article 1. The primary purposes of the UN, as laid out in the Charter, are 1. Maintain international peace and security. To take effective collective measures for the prevention and removal of threats to peace, and to suppress acts of aggression. Develop friendly relations, based on respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples. Achieve international cooperation. In solving economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian problems, and in promoting respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms for all. Be a center for harmonizing, to be a forum for harmonizing the actions of nations in the attainment of these common ends. Key Principles, Article 2. The organization and its members must act in accordance with these principles. Sovereign equality. The organization is based on the principle of the sovereign equality of all its members. Good faith. Members must fulfill in good faith the obligations assumed by them in accordance with the Charter. Peaceful settlement of disputes. Members shall settle their international disputes by peaceful means. Prohibition of force. Members must refrain from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity
or political independence of any state, with exceptions for self-defense and UN Security Council authorization. Non-intervention. The UN should not intervene in matters essentially within the domestic jurisdiction of any state. Is India a permanent member in the UN? The claim that India has become a permanent member of the UNSC with veto power is false. The UNSC consists of 5 permanent members with veto power: China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. India has been advocating for UN reform and expansion of the Security Council to include more permanent members, with India being a likely candidate. However, no such decision has been made yet. India's bid for a permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council, UNSC, has garnered significant support from major powers, including the United States, United Kingdom, Russia, and France. As a founding member of the United Nations, India has consistently demonstrated its commitment to global peace, security, and development. Why India deserves a permanent seat? India is one of the leading, among the 4 major contenders, for a permanent seat in UNSC. The contenders in the race are Japan, Brazil, Germany from G4 nations. The following factors make India a strong contender: growing economic power. India is now the world's fourth largest economy and has demonstrated rapid growth, making it a key player in global affairs. 2. Contributions to global peacekeeping. India has participated in UN peacekeeping missions for decades, deploying troops in conflict zones across the world, and remains one of the largest troop-contributing countries. 3. Leadership in international forums. India has championed the cause of developing nations and has been a steadfast supporter of UN peacekeeping operations, making it a natural candidate for a permanent seat. Democratic values. As the world's largest democracy, India's inclusion in the UNSC would provide a more balanced and representative council, reflecting the multipolar world that exists today. So, membership. India is not only a member of G77 but also partially in the G7 and G20. 6. Interests of developing countries. India not only shares warm strategic, economic, political and cultural relations with most of the G7 countries, but also voices for the interests of developing countries. Advocacy for India, the United States, Russia, the United Kingdom. France and Nordic countries have expressed solidarity for India's permanent membership, highlighting India's growing influence and contributions to global peace and security. Wider international backing. Nations like Bhutan and Mauritius urged for urgent reforms and specifically backed India's inclusion, emphasizing its constructive global role. UN leadership. The UN Secretary General has expressed strong support for reforming the Security Council to better reflect the world of today, 2025, rather than 1945, recognizing India as a key voice in the multilateral system. Besides, including the above, more than two-thirds majority of the 193 nations have affirmed their support for India's permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. Recently, these countries have supported India and the other G4 countries for gaining permanent seats. Challenges to India's bid. There are challenges to India's bid for a permanent membership. The veto power. The question of whether India should be granted veto power, like the existing permanent members, remains a contentious issue. Geographical rivalries. India's bid faces resistance from other regional and global powers, particularly from countries like Turkey, Pakistan, and their allies.
China's stance. China's stance on India's bid for a permanent seat on the UN Security Council, UNSC, appears to be supportive, but with certain conditions. China has expressed support for India's aspiration to play a greater role in the UN, including the UNSC. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson recently stated that China understands and supports India's desire to play a bigger role in the United Nations, including its Security Council. Conditional support. However, China's support is conditional upon the reform of the UNSC being rational and necessary and increasing representation for developing countries. No clear commitment. But, despite India's efforts, China has not made a clear commitment to support India's bid for a permanent seat on the UNSC. China's position remains cautious. In recent developments, China has shown a willingness to work with India on various fronts, including diplomatic engagement and economic cooperation. While China's support for India's UNSC bid is not entirely unambiguous, there are indications of a positive shift in their stance. However, the path forward will likely involve continued diplomatic efforts and negotiations between the two nations. There has been vehement criticism from emminent.org against India on various fronts, inhibiting India to attain its goal. It has criticized India's human rights record and says that it matters in its bid for permanent seat in the UNSC. Amnesty International reviewed analysis indicates that India has not been a strong leader, criticized India's human rights record. Permanent seat, UNSC, India analysis, not a strong leader. At the UNHRC, willing to take difficult and principled stands with consistent application of human rights values, nor has it engaged constructively with council mechanisms. According to them, Human Rights Committee raised the same concerns that civil society has been warning about for decades, namely, India's failure to meet international human rights standards to address discrimination and violence on the basis of religion, caste and gender violence against women, trafficking and bonded labor, use of the death penalty, torture, and other ill treatment, lack of protection to migrants and asylum seekers, unlawful surveillance, crackdown on freedom of expression, association, and peaceful assembly, lack of proper drinking water, lack of proper school attendance in rural areas.
The European Union holds a special status of a permanent observer with enhanced participation rights at the UN General Assembly. The EU is a unique economic and political union of its 27 member countries, not a single sovereign state itself. Later on, the status was enhanced in 2011, giving it significant rights, like the right to speak in the General Assembly among representatives of major groups, submit proposals and amendments, exercise the right of reply, circulate documents, but no voting rights. Despite its observer status, the EU, along with its member states, is a significant partner and the largest financial contributor to the UN system. It actively cooperates with the UN across various policy areas like human rights, sustainable development, and crisis management. Summary conclusion. A final push for a reformed global order requires India to address its domestic and regional challenges while fostering greater unity among emerging powers. The author concludes with his observations on two major grounds. Firstly, India's path to permanent UNSC seat. India, a founding and crucial member of the UN, justly aspires to a permanent seat in the UN Security Council, UNSC, a body that must reflect contemporary global realities to maintain its legitimacy and effectiveness. Despite its massive population, robust economic growth, and significant contributions to UN peacekeeping, India faces some key weaknesses that impede its goal. These weaknesses include the persistence of domestic socio-economic disparities and a need to significantly increase its financial contributions and demonstrate greater leadership on global norm-setting and human rights issues. India must be cautious of many false narratives that are building against it by some of its adversaries in the international arena. For instance, popping up of the baseless issue of discrimination and violence on the basis of religion, caste, and gender seems impractical and literally hypothetical. Secondly, the BRICS dual-edge opportunity at par with EU. The future weight of India and other emerging powers in the UN may also hinge on their ability to formulate cohesive multilateral strategies. The European Union, EU, provides a precedent for collective influence. Despite its 27 sovereign member states, each holding full UN membership, the EU itself enjoys enhanced permanent observer status in the UN General Assembly. This status grants it the right to speak, present proposals, and circulate documents among member states, acting as a single, powerful voice alongside its individual members. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and recent expanded members could similarly capitalize on collective unity. By developing and strengthening their internal cooperation, particularly on economic and geopolitical issues, the bloc can seek a comparable enhanced observer role in the UN. This dual-edge approach, where individual BRICS nations continue to pursue their national interests and a permanent UNSC seat, like India, while the BRICS bloc operates as a coordinated unit, would exponentially enhance their collective weightage in the UN Assembly. Such a united front would not only magnify the concerns of the Global South, but also demonstrate a responsible, cohesive alternative to existing power blocs, making the call for a more equitable, reformed UNSC increasingly difficult to ignore.